Good day, everyone. Welcome back to another edition in ScanForce's Continuing Education Seminar Series. Today, we're going to be touching on manufacturing, specifically doing a deep dive, looking at all the various offerings that we have within the Sage 100 world for manufacturing, and answering some of your questions about those. My name is Brian Berry. I'll be your presenter today. And real quick, I want to go through a quick agenda. I will do a very quick, not to bore you introduction as to who we are, because I know we have some first-time folks visiting with us today, as well as some long-time customers, existing clients, and reseller partners. I'm glad that you're all here. So we'll talk just briefly about who we are, the solutions that we offer. We'll dig deep into all of the manufacturing suite that we have with various products. We'll do a special deep dive into production management. That's probably what most of you paid to see when you came today. And then I have a really big announcement that's coming up. But this is a tease because I'm not going to tell you about it now. You got to wait. This is how I get you to listen to the entire presentation. And then at the end, as always, we'll do some Q&A because we want to hear what you have to say. Comments, questions, by all means. And of course, again, Brian here, I would be able to answer any of your questions on the 100 side of the fence here at ScanForce. If you have questions yourself, if you are reseller partners, you have questions on behalf of a client, please come to me directly. We'll get those answered. We'll schedule a meeting and we'll talk about all of those one-on-one and get all your questions answered. Okay? Now, for the introduction, we've been doing this for quite a while, the better part of 3 decades now almost. We've got over 20 people, and we keep growing. We've added several people just in the last year in the support side of things, in the programming side of the house, and on the implementation side. So as our customer base expands, as the product becomes richer, fuller, more clients added, we need to increase our capabilities there to keep up with that demand, and we are doing so because we want to make sure that we keep the service and support side of the business up to snuff, as they say. Our numbers keep improving. If you've watched some older videos that may have things in like the 800 or 900 range, well, now we're up around 1,000 installs, okay? And 10,000 users overall in the Sage world. So those are milestones that we are very proud of, and we thank all of you existing clients for being a part of that over the last 20 plus years. Okay? Now, what do we do here at ScanForce? I say this all the time, most people think of us as those barcoding folks, and that's exactly what I want you to think of us as. We are a barcoding company. We are the barcoding entree into Sage 100. And our warehouse management system, or WMS for short, we have 3 different iterations. And I tell people this all the time, it's not about the size of your company. We have large companies that use our core system with the most basic functionality because it meets all of their needs. And then again, we have some very small companies that may just have a handful of users that use our premier version with all the features and functions, because by deploying all of those features and functions, they're able to stay small. They're able to get a lot done and be very efficient with a very few numbers of people, especially for clients that don't have a large IT staff. We still make it very, very simple to deploy all these solutions. And as part of that, right below WMS is label printing. Like I said, we're the barcoding folks. We're all about the barcoding labels. I personally have been in the larger barcoding industry for over 20 years. I'll talk barcodes till the cows come home if you want to. I have people all the time. Had an email just today. Do you support this kind of barcode? The answer is always yes. Ask me that question. The answer is always yes. We support that barcode and every other barcode. And our label printing is dynamic. We allow you to design your own labels. You can make it look like whatever you want it to be. In fact, think about this on the outbound side. You could design a label that has your customer's logo on it. How sexy would that be to have your customer take something off the truck from you and it's already got their logo on it? So you can get very, very specific, very unique. We'll teach you how to do this, and you can do it yourself, okay? And then over on the right-hand side, manufacturing. That's really what we came here to talk about today. So I won't belabor these individual parts, but just to recap, we do still support the old legacy work order stuff, okay? Even though that's really, Sage has been trying to phase that out for 5 years or more, okay? We support bill of materials and of course production management. And then we have an add-on to production management called make to order. And I won't steal the thunder from the presentation a little bit later on. There'll be a specific couple of screens on make to order and how that fits in the production management world. So we'll talk about that when we get there. Last but not least, top right, mobile sales, completely separate animal from the warehousing side of things. The WMS, the label printing, the manufacturing, that's all built in, all part of the warehouse, inside the four walls stuff. Mobile sales can be very much outside the four walls. So imagine you have a salesperson that goes out, sits across the desk from a client. What do you need today? More of a route sales kind of thing. Or if they deliver things and drop them off, they can collect those items, scan them off the truck, even build an invoice while they're still on site doing it. You could go to a trade show or a conference or something like that. Take orders from the show floor. If you have a counter sales where people walk up and want to buy stuff, you can have a tablet running our mobile sales application and get access to the exact same data that you would if you were sitting at a PC wired into Sage 100. All the pricing levels and contact info and shipping address, all that stuff is built in. They're all drop downs. You can use barcode scanning through it if you want to. There is a catalog mode where you can show people pictures. It's very much a customer facing thing. So we show prices, but not costs. And we can do price discount levels. It's all built in. It's very simple. And again, all the same data as if you were talking directly through a PC wired into Sage. Now, what sets us apart here at ScanForce? Well, we think a great many things, but if I had to whittle it down to three, one of them would be speed. Okay, our system, just the architecture of it, it is designed to be very, very fast. Some of the decisions were made very early on are paying big benefits for people now because that architecture allows us to access data at the millisecond level. In fact, years ago, we did this thing called the Million Record Challenge. Looked up a million records and said, go find one discrete piece of information, and it returned it in less than 0.03 seconds. Okay, it's really fast, faster than you can blink. Okay. It's also very intuitive, and I'm going to show you some examples of that on some screenshots that I have further down in the presentation, but we try to make it very intuitive. We've been doing this for a long, long time with Sage 100. We grew out of Sage 100. A Sage 100 client that said, I want to scan barcodes, write me something. ScanForce was born on that day. And so we know how Sage wants data to be sent back to it. We align our screens that exact same way. 99 times out of 100, I'm just going to ask your people in the warehouse for one piece of data per screen. I tell people all the time, we're not going to slow your people down in the warehouse. We're going to speed them up because they no longer have to deal with paper. They no longer have to worry about where their pen is that they lost and because they got to write a bunch of stuff down. It's intuitive and it's fast. Okay. Lastly, support. And I say this every single time. If you've heard me on any of these presentations, you've heard this story before. If there's one takeaway that I want you to have from this presentation, it is the support that we offer here at ScanForce. It is job one. It is a cultural thing. It is a top-down thing. Everybody here on the same page. And if you don't believe me, which you probably shouldn't, take it with a grain of salt. Ask anybody else in the Sage 100 world, and they will say the same thing. If you mention the name ScanForce, my hope is the very next word out of their mouth is support. Okay. All right, a few of the things that you probably buy any given day that, at the grocery store that are made with ScanForce manufacturing products. Ocean Spray, that's a name everybody knows. Gorilla Pasta. If you've been on a late night dinner and you come home, what would be better than a bowl of Skyline chili? Okay, so these are things that are hopefully known entities to you that will hopefully give you a warm fuzzy knowing that there are people out there, these big major national brands that are utilizing the exact same software that you can use in your warehouse today. Okay, now let's dive in and talk about some of them. The very first thing I want to talk about is bill of materials. Okay, bill of materials, of course, is an add-on to Sage. What we offer is the ability to automate the data collection that feeds into bill of materials in Sage. You develop a bill, you have essentially a recipe. If I'm making something, these are the components or raw materials that go into it. So what we do on our handheld is we pull up a copy of that bill. We give your people a list of those things that are raw materials. They can scan them, select them from the list. We give multiple options to do the data entry. It works either with or without multi-bin. And if you're not familiar with what multi-bin is, I'd love to have an offline conversation with you to talk about that as well. But we allow you to capture this data on a device that can be mobile. I say can be because we have some people that actually still do this at a PC in the warehouse. It runs on a Windows PC environment. And let's think about this. If you're doing a manufacturing step where the stuff comes to you, you're at the end of the production line, you don't necessarily need mobility. That's fine. There's an existing PC there. We'll load our software on it, and they can do it right there. Or if you do want to be mobile and go get things out of the racking system, off a shelf, that sort of thing, and move them around, scan them from one place to the other, then of course the mobile data collection device is typically a Zebra class of device, if you're familiar. Running Android is what's most typical. We also run on iOS, Apple platforms, okay? So we try to be very all-encompassing when it comes to the hardware that we allow you to utilize, all right? And there's two basic ways to do bill of materials, and you may have heard this if you're familiar. There's the backflush method or the component method, okay? The real deciding factor is lot numbers and serial numbers. If you use lot numbers and serial numbers and you want backwards traceability to know that if there's a problem with the product in a finished goods state, you want to backtrack to the raw material that was used, what lot number or what serial numbers were consumed in that manufacturing, then we have to use the component method. It allows us to specify exactly which components went into the production during that manufacturing step. And we allow a very, very easy process through our management console to be able to backtrack and find that out. Okay, just a couple of mouse clicks and boom, you're looking at exactly the raw materials that went into it. Okay, that's the component method. The one right above that is backflush. That is the simplest, fastest method. Okay, imagine this. I'm making a rolling desk chair. I'm sitting in one. There's a good chance you are too. Okay, if I'm making a rolling desk chair, the recipe for those really doesn't change. Okay, I need a back, and I need a cushion, and maybe arms. I need probably 5 wheels for every one that I make. The recipe never changes. So if I simply tell Sage I made 10 chairs, it knows that it needs to remove 50 wheels from stock because the recipe never changes. I'm never going to make a 4-wheeled chair. So in that case, backflush, very simple. I don't have to specify the components in that case. So components typically, again, those are used when you're dealing with lots and serials and you want that traceability. We give you the flexibility to do it either way, okay? And sometimes you may need to do both. We give you both options on the screen. So you have some options that are allotted serial, some manufacturing process that aren't. You can use a combination of the two, okay? And on top of bill of materials, we try to add enhancements to allow you to add on or enhance your experience based on your needs. One of the popular add-ons for this is bill of materials picking. We basically, it's like a pick ticket that you would use for a sales order. It tells people exactly where to go in the warehouse, exactly what to get, how many of them to fulfill a sales order. This is really the same basic concept. We allow you to pick based on the components that are needed for that bill that you're making. So on the list, on the handheld, you would have a list of 5, 10, 15 things that you need. It would tell you to go get them. If it's a multi-bin environment, it tells you exactly where to go, which bin to go get them out of, that sort of thing, okay? We also have this option that's called adjust final output. So after you've produced something, and then you realize, oh wait, one of these wheels is sticking, that doesn't work. I made 10 chairs, but only 9 are valid. We give you the ability to go in sort of after the fact and make that correction, okay? So that's bill of materials. If you have questions about that, would love to have a conversation. I would love to do a live demo for you and show you the progression of screens and how the data flows back and forth from the data that we collect on the handheld and updates of Bash and Sage. Okay. Now let's switch gears and let's talk a little bit about production management. Okay. Production management is the replacement for the work order, like I talked about in the beginning. So production management, more sophisticated, if you will, a little bit more complex than bill of materials. Bill of materials is great if you're doing it sort of after the fact. I've assembled something and now I'm going to tell you what I used when I made this. Production management is a little different in that it allows you to do inputs against that production management work ticket. Work ticket is the term used for the document while you're doing it. Okay. For instance, I can issue out raw materials before I do the completion or tell you how many I made. Okay. Because there may have been a problem during the manufacturing step. Maybe I'm supposed to make 10 chairs, but something broke. I only got to make 9. I've still already scanned in all the raw materials. I've issued them during the material issue step here, but then I can come back later and do the completion. So it's kind of a 2-step process. Now, we can still backflush here if we want to. If you don't need to identify the exact materials, if you don't have lot numbers, serial numbers, and you don't care which 50 wheels come out of stock, we can just do the completion and the system will just remove 50 wheels, okay? Now, one of the big differences in production management from bill of materials is the ability to track labor, okay? We give you two different options. We have a time clock option and this data entry labor tracking option. Time clock by far and away the most popular. And remember when I told you talked about being intuitive before? How about a big green button to start and a big red button to stop? It's about as intuitive as we can make it, okay? This works great if I'm doing a linear process. I'm going to start something and then I'm going to end it. And then I'm going to hand it off to somebody else and they'll start and stop their process. Or I'm going to move on to the next thing and I'm going to start and stop it. And it will calculate that time. And again, through our management console, we can show all this to you very easily, okay? The labor tracking option, as opposed to the time clock, is simply what I refer to as the after the fact method, okay? Sometimes you don't do things in a linear fashion. I may set up a machine to run and then another one and then another one, and I'm running them simultaneously. Well, if I said I spent an hour, well, the system would say, okay, that's an hour on this one, an hour on that one, an hour on that one. You're really good, Brian, because in an hour's worth of time, you did 3 hours worth of labor. Congratulations, you get a raise. Well, the real world doesn't work that way. So with time clock, or excuse me, with the labor tracking option, I can go in this job and I can say, well, on this work ticket, I spent 20 minutes, and over here 18, and over here 22. Still adds up to an hour, but I can divvy it up exactly how it was used, okay? Now, that's just some of the basics. I'm just tip of the iceberg here on production management. I want to whet your appetite, let you know some of the options that are available to you, but here's the big one, the big announcement, okay? Now, you didn't even know you were going to get this today. This is a freebie. This is like extra inning baseball, okay? The big announcement. This is something that we teased about 18 months ago for any of the partners that went to 90 Minds. We're ready to finally announce that now, and here it is. Allocations for raw materials on the work tickets. Ooh, crowd goes wild, okay? So what an allocation is, if you're not familiar, it's basically a reservation. I want to create a reservation for the raw materials that I'm going to use against this work ticket to make this finished good. It's something that really has never existed before, so we invented it. Now, there are some requirements, okay, some prerequisites. One of them is you have to be using our multi-bin solution in order for this to work. All of the allocations or reservations are based on the bin where the item exists, so that is a requirement. The other is you, of course, must be using our production management automation piece, which is the screens I just showed you a few moments ago. So if you're using our production management automation, which dovetails directly into Sage PM, and you're using our multi-bin, then we can do this pre-allocation. So what exactly does it do? Well, it allows me to reserve raw material inventory before I complete the transaction. And again, this just never has existed before, and it's kind of been a hole in the offering that we are now able to finally plug, okay? So the system will allocate or create a reservation for lot numbers, sort of things like that, in bins where the inventory is stored, because you may have the same thing in more than one place, okay? Now, this can be done manually, so when I'm setting up the work ticket, I can go in and say, I'm going to reserve material in this place, or I'm going to reserve this lot number, or this serial number because of special physical or chemical properties, or whatever makes sense in your manufacturing world, okay? Or the system can do it automatically, and there's multiple mechanisms. For those of you that are familiar with our multi-bin advanced and how we do allocations on the sales orders, very similar, okay? Maybe we're doing it based on oldest lot. We want to get the oldest stuff out first. If you're running a FIFO environment, it's important to you, okay? If it's perishable or things like that, you want to get the old stuff out first. Or maybe it's based on like pick efficiency, like this stuff is closer. I want to do it based on bin location order. There's multiple different options here, okay? And again, it can be done manually by when you set up the work ticket, or the system can just do it automatically, okay? And now here's the big kicker. Here's where this gets really cool and where we add some major efficiencies to the workflow on the shop floor in the warehouse. We're going to develop a new mobile program. There will be a new app on that last screen where I showed you issues and completions and labor track. We're going to add a new one for you called work ticket picking, okay? So now I will have a true pick list, and it will direct, again, if you're familiar with multi-bin and the way it works in the sales order world, exactly the same philosophy. We're going to direct the handheld user exactly what bin to go to to get the material that has been reserved or allocated for them, okay? Again, we're taking the guesswork completely out of the equation. I did a demo for somebody the other day, and I said, you've got somebody who's been here 20 years. They know exactly how to do all this stuff, okay? But what about the new guy you just hired? How long is it going to take him to memorize where everything is in the warehouse and to get up to speed, okay? Imagine this, new guy, hand him a handheld, they sign in. It says, hey, here's a work ticket. You need to go pick it. Go to aisle B, rack 300, shelf 3. Well, I can walk there and scan it, beep, okay, you got the right one. Okay, pick 10 of this item, scan it, make sure you got the right item, pick 10. Okay, now the new guy is exactly as efficient as the person who's been here for 20 years, and he's been here for 20 minutes, okay? This is what our technology could do for you by adding this extra efficiencies to your operation, okay? A lot of hidden ROI right there. Think about the time it takes you to get somebody up to speed through training. That goes away basically, okay? Now, back to this. So we can stage material. We can move material to a production staging bin, all right? So I can say not what rack it's sitting on, but it's in a bin beside this machine or that production area or that production line or whatever. And then if I move it to the production area, well, then I can back flush it out of that location. And if you've never dealt with multi-bin, you know how crucial that can be and how efficient that would be in adding that enhancement to the environment, okay? All right, so again, I'm just here to whet your appetite. I'm not here to answer all your questions. I know this is a little bit of a tease, but we're going to be officially launching this in July. There will be a webinar in July that you're going to want to register for so that you can learn all about this whole work ticket pre-allocation concepts, okay? All right, I'm going to move on. Let's go back into our sort of normal flow of the presentation. And let's talk about a few of the differences in bill of materials and production management, okay? Why would you use or choose one over the other? Well, they are very different. Bill of materials works great for a one-step thing, and it's typically an after-the-fact entry. So I'm combining things. I'm taking 5 things and putting them together to make a kitted product, okay? It's great for assemblies. You tell Sage, so actually you tell ScanForce, we'll tell Sage for you, what you want to make, how many of them, the components that you use, or optionally you can do the backflush, and then poof, you're done. That's it, okay? You could print finished good labels for it. We add that to inventory, and all the components then get removed from inventory. It's very simple, and because of that, it's very streamlined, very easy to use, very, very popular, okay? Now, why might you use production management? Well, like I said before, it's a little more sophisticated. It can do a little more things, a little bit more advanced, okay? You can do things in multiple steps. First of all, instead of bill of materials, but just kind of a one-step assembly kind of thing, with production management, I can say, you know, if I want to make an airplane, I'm not just going to say, okay, I start with a piece of aluminum and then I end up with something that flies. No, I'm going to have a work ticket that maybe allows me to build the left wheel assembly, okay? And another work ticket that builds the radar assembly. And you put several hundred or several thousand work tickets together, and then you got a plane, okay? And so work tickets can be staged so that one creates a component that will get used in the next step. So the finished good of one work ticket becomes a subassembly in the next work ticket, all right? And again, like I said, you can track all the component inventories. You can do back flushing just like before. But the labor, that's one of the big differences. Not an option in bill of materials, labor only here, okay? Now, another add-on piece that I hinted at before was make to order. With make to order, it watches you enter a sales order. If you enter a sales order for something that you need to make, the system can do one of 3 things. It can do, I tell you what, I won't bore you with these screens. I won't read them to you. I'm going to show you what it does on the next. But I want you to look at this quote right here, okay? Some of our sales orders have 10 nines that need work tickets. One click, and it does it automatically. It's amazing. So literally, one click, or even without a click, automatically, will create the work tickets for you. That's what make it to order does. It creates the work ticket for you based on the recognized need from the sales order, okay? It looks like this. When I'm in sales order entry, we're going to add a button up here that says create work ticket. I can say I want to create a work ticket right now, okay? Or when I enter a sales order, it can prompt me and say, do you want to create a work ticket now, yes or no, okay? Or we can just automatically have it create the work ticket for you, Okay, it's very flexible. Some people make stuff for stock, some people for orders, but when you're doing this make to order, it can automatically link to the sales order. Okay, and so the work ticket automatically knows what needs to be made and how many of them. Okay, so very, very cool piece of software that can be added on. Again, make to order is an add-on piece. Okay. Production management is also very flexible because it allows multiple steps. Okay, so instead of having a bunch of work tickets, I can have one work ticket with multiple steps. If I'm building a computer, maybe I want to install the chips and then put cards in slots and then install transistors, capacitors, then the black. So I can do each little step one at a time. It's all one work ticket leading up to one ultimate finished good. Okay. Again, this is the difference between bill of materials. This is not an option, multiple steps like this. Okay. So we can also auto issue things like labor. We can backflush the labor. So it can be set up to do some things automatically for you that bill of materials just can't. So again, so you kind of get a glimpse behind the scenes, behind the curtain, that production management really is just that much more flexible. Okay. So imagine you're building a computer or a plane, whatever. Okay. So you issue the parts out, and now we can allocate them. We can reserve those parts to make sure they don't get consumed by something else, because that would slow down or stop production altogether. Okay. You can track the labor, and then you can repurpose this over and over and over through multiple steps in the same work ticket. You can also have multiple people. We allow you to track labor as individuals or crews. You can have a crew of people working together and track their labels simultaneously. We can, label the finished goods, that sort of thing. Excuse me. Now, some quick advantages. Again, very flexible. So the personnel can change what they're using on the fly. I'm using this raw material versus that, if that happens. Also, you don't need Sage licenses. Okay. All the people running around with scanners in the warehouse that are accessing ScanForce, not Sage users, just ScanForce users. Less expensive. Okay. You can track things in real time. When you pull something out, okay, those components out, we track that. We know that instantly. We feed that back to Sage. Okay. And we're adding a great deal of efficiency because people just don't have to write things down. You don't have to shuffle paper. Doing things electronically, a lot more efficient. Okay. Now, real quick, IRP, inventory requirements planning. This is a Sage piece. I'll leave the slide here. I'm not going to read it for you. Again, the recording will be available, but IRP will help you determine, do I have enough of stuff to make the things I need to make? Do I need to buy them? Do I have time to purchase them? It's just a great planning tool. It's not really a ScanForce thing, so I'm not going to go into great detail today. It's a Sage piece that sort of dovetails into production management. Okay, so when you're evaluating production management on the Sage side, IRP will be part of that conversation. Okay. Okay, so we've reached the end of the presentation. I want to thank you all so much for joining. We're going to do Q&A in just a moment, but I do appreciate you coming out. I do encourage you to please register for that July webinar that's coming up. This webinar will be recorded, and in a day or so, it will be up on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search for ScanForce. Dozens and dozens of videos out there. This will become the latest and greatest. And watch your email. You will get an email with a link to that, so you can download that, watch it, share it with people internally, share it with your clients, things of that nature. So before we get to Q&A, for any of those that have to drop off because we sort of reached the end of our 30-minute time limit, again, Brian Berry here from ScanForce. Please reach out to me with any questions you have about manufacturing, multi-den, make to order, anything to do with Sage 100. I'm your guy. Let me know. Be happy to talk to you or your clients directly.